Trade season is officially here. What should the Celtics do? What can the Celtics do? Keith Smith is here to break it all down for us right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Beantown, be ever ready. It's the C's. Who else could it be? What they gon' say now? Screaming like JT. Karalis, recap the madness every game, every practice. Primetime Depp and D White on the sideline. Raining Jays, how it started, raising banners, how we finished. Locked on Celtics pod, home of the winners.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. Your team is the Boston Celtics, and we're talking about them every Monday through Friday, plus bonus podcasts when they play on the weekends, and there will be plenty of weekend games this week, next week. So we're going to be going for like 2 weeks straight, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show. It's on YouTube. Get into the comment section and share your thoughts with everydayers like you, people who are with me every Monday through Friday and on these weekends. If you're new to the show, I am John Karalis, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've been covering the team for about 20 years, doing this podcast for about 10. And I've written a couple of books about the team as well. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel to place your NFL live bets all season long. What a crazy live betting the Patriots game was. Patriots-Bills was a crazy one. But we'll get to that later. That's a whole other thing. Today we're talking about trade season. It's December 15th. It's officially trade season. And there's only one person that you got to talk to when December 15th rolls around, and that's Keith Smith of Spotrac. Keith, how are you doing, my friend?
I am doing really well. I am, things are going good. Like you said, it's trade season, opens unofficially on the 15th. It's funny because I had somebody reach out and they're like, is that like a real thing? And I was like, it kind of is. Like it's just, that's when most of the guys will get traded over the summer. I think it's 82 players this year that signed over the summertime can be traded. So I was like, we call it early trade season, unofficial opening. But most things pick up late January, early February as we get closer to the February 5th deadline. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, because these restrictions open, everybody loves to talk about a trade every day, right? That's the most popular topic in the NBA. But this is where, when we look at the Spotrac trade machine, I always have to turn the restrictions off. And now I don't have to turn those restrictions off as much because guys can be traded.
Getting close.
Yeah. Now we're starting to be like, okay, now this guy, okay, good. So later on, we'll get to what the Celtics' realistic approach will be. We'll talk about the Celtics' assets, but let's just start at the beginning here because where the Celtics are, it's funny. They just came off of this big, crazy stretch where they be, 15-9 and third seed and all of that stuff. Then they lose to the Bucks in a very kind of humbling way. And it does, I think, reopen the question, buy or sell or stand pat. I guess that's a third option here. But the momentum was for hey, maybe the Celtics should be buyers. Maybe the Celtics should try to start packaging things and try to make their run now because Tatum looks like he's coming back and the team looks good, and why not go for it now? The East is so wide open. So where do you fall on that?
Yeah, it almost feels like we've had kind of two Celtics seasons in the first third or so of the season here, where the beginning part was okay, they're not going to be very good, and then the long win streak happens, and it's all right, I'm ready to buy in on these guys. I think they're a little bit better than I thought they were going to be. I thought they'd be right around 500, a few games above. Maybe they'll be a few games better than that. And I think what you can do if you're the Celtics is, I think you're a cautious buyer. And what I mean by that is, you're not making the all-in trade, right? There's no Giannis trade to be made for the Celtics. It's just not happening. We can just leave it there. Just put that one away. But there's miles and miles of players in between Giannis and good, helpful players that could be traded that Boston could get. And I think for them is they can get into that position where I think they could still accomplish the goal of get cheaper this year, meaning save some money that could potentially maybe even get all the way out of the tax. We'll see, about $12 million over the tax line, but get all the way out of the tax potentially, which would start helping towards cutting down on the repeater tax while still adding a helpful player. Because let's face it, they've got Anfernee Simons. I know we're going to get into this deeper, but big contract that could be moved. That's not going to kill your rotation. He's been good for the Celtics, but he's not like you're not going to be like, oh no, we lost Anfernee Simons. The season is over. Like, I think they could get into a position where you do something like that, save a little bit of money and get better, kind of, plugging a hole somewhere else on the team and move forward. But here's my key thing. If you're doing that, I don't want this to be an addition that is we're adding just for the rest of this year. It's got to be somebody who can fit as the team moves forward and grows. Kind of like the Derrick White trade of a few years where Derrick White was a guy, okay, we're getting Derrick White, and then Derrick White can be on the team for the next several years moving forward. That's the kind of addition I think you need to focus on.
So it's almost like buy and sell in a way, because you can do a lot with the Simons contract, which I think there's a separate Simons discussion to be had, where his value is clearly not at 27 million.
Yeah, 27.7.
Yeah, so his value is not at that. He's not a $27 million player right now. Maybe he can play his way back into that, but he's not doing it this season. So there's a lot of where do you go from here with him? And if you can move him, let's just look at that concept of what would it look like to move Simons to save money? Like, how would you see like a mechanism of that kind of trade?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can do it, right? You can do almost the step down approach, like what the Celtics did in getting Simons, which was he makes just a little bit less than Drew Holiday. So you work with a team where they've got a guy who makes 22 million or so. And that's how you do it. You just kind of continue to step down. Now, I don't know that that's going to be big enough to do anything. Just the numbers that everybody needs to kind of know here are Celtics are 12.1 million over the luxury tax. They're 4 million over the first apron. Being over the first apron at this point doesn't really matter for them. There's some restrictions that come with that, but they're not overly meaningful. They're nothing that you should be too worried about. Getting under the second apron was obviously, I'm not breaking news here because Brad Stevens said it himself. It was one of the things they had to do. And that was something that they were going to accomplish. Getting out of the tax would be a nice bonus, but I don't get the sense from anybody that I've talked to close to the team that anyone has said, you got to get out of the tax this year. That has to happen. It doesn't seem like that is a must. So it seems more like if we can, we will. So with Simons, so the nice thing about having our own trade machine on Spotrac, we can pull data for what trades people are making. And no, I'm not looking at what trades is John Karalis making. We don't have that level of data, but we have who are the teams and the players involved.
Good.
And
I'm glad because it would be very stupid trades if you found what I was looking at.
Yeah,
I don't publicize my fake trades. Trust me.
It's funny because I tell people all the time, like if you looked at mine, be like, I thought this guy knew the salary cap. Why does so many of his trades fail initially? So, but it's but one of the things when you pulled Boston data specifically, a very popular trade, just a straight up trade that is very popular, is Anfernee Simons for Terrence Mann with the Nets, because you would use Mann in his contract. He comes over to Boston, and that basically gets the Celtics out of the luxury tax. And I think a lot of people look at it as that's pretty. Mann's not the scorer that Simons is, but that's a helpful wing ball handler type player who could help in the rotation. And I know for me personally, the thing I like about Mann is he's got a couple more years under contract. So whether that's you're getting him because you like him and he can be a helpful rotation guy when Tatum is back and the team is more whole, or if you say, well, that's 15 million we can now use in a trade next year when we're ready to build things back up and we're not probably dealing with apron restrictions and all the other things, we can move forward. So that's a very popular one. That's just an example of a deal that
works. That works because the Celtics can take him into the Porziņģis exception.
You could do it that way, but it also works just because they're taking back less money. And the Nets would essentially be the only time you can combine things that aren't actual player salaries are cap space and a player salary. The Nets are still sitting on 15 million in cap space. Man makes about 15 million. So you put together, what's that going to be, about 13 million of cap space plus Man's 15 million. That gets you to Simon's salary. That comes in. And the Celtics they'd create a big $12 million trade exception and again, get themselves out from underneath the luxury tax entirely. And that's just an example of one move. Sure. I don't think it's going to be a one move thing. I think it's probably going to be more of a couple of moves if they want to go that direction. But I think that could be the way this goes.
All right. So let's okay. I like where we are here. It's a kind of in between. You want to add to the team, but you're not. I think everybody agrees here. You don't want to just be like, okay, this is the time to go for it. So you're going all in on something. So like you said, there's no Giannis trade here because that would involve you have to trade Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum. Right.
Or so many players that your team left would be Jaylen Brown, an injured Jayson Tatum, Giannis, you and me. And there we go.
So that's why that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And so there are other trades to be made, which we can continue as we look at the Celtics assets. What can they truly send out? What makes sense? Because that's the next step in what's Brad Stevens going to do, and how do you kind of toe the line? Because I really think there's a lot of towing the line here. How do you maximize this little opportunity, and how do you not be like, the Clippers, where some other team owns your first round pick, something's gone horribly wrong, and you're sitting there like, oh no, what do we do here? Or the Pelicans. We'll do that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Wayfair. The holidays show up faster than we expect. Christmas is 10 days away. If you're still putting together gifts, last-minute decor, I'm just shocked by how quickly it came. If you're getting your home ready for guests, Wayfair has you covered. Whether you need a quick room refresh, new bedding, or those final seasonal touches, Wayfair makes it easy to get what you need fast. It's your one-stop shop for everything home. There's decor, furniture, kitchen essentials, gifts for every style, budget. It's all delivered quickly and easily. I've said before on the show where one of the things my wife probably texts me the most is Wayfair links. And it's because their selection is huge. Whenever we want new bedding or we want to refresh a room, you can find everything, and whatever your style, whatever your budget, very easy. And it's very easy to share. It's very easy to figure out what pieces actually fit your home. There's no guessing involved. And the items you get will instantly refresh your space. You don't need to do like this big project. You just, a couple little things do a lot of work. No massive delivery fees. There's no stress. Super easy to kind of update things. And so it's perfect. If you want to get a gift for somebody, you can do that too. They have guides, tons of options, and something for everybody in any budget. So get last-minute hosting essentials, gifts for all your loved ones, and decor to celebrate the holidays for way less. That's wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. You don't have to tell me about that. Watching the Patriots and Bills, that was one big play over and over and over again. But that's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. You can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. So when a receiver gets hot, defense tightens up, or momentum flips after a turnover, you can jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly, player props that update as guys heat up. And you can bet things like the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. If you want to get into basketball, the Celtics are 1.5-point favorites over the Detroit Pistons on Monday. That's a little surprising that the Celtics are the favorites, but they've played the Pistons well at home. So check it out. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com to place your live bets, NFL, NBA, all season long. When you sign in, they have the tools available there. They will ask you to set a budget. Please do so. That way, if you hit a cold streak, if you've only put in the limit as what you can afford to lose, your disposable income, you're protected, you're safe, you're gambling responsibly. So please do that. At FanDuel, a game moves fast, and so can you. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. You already live your team every day. Now take it up to the next level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club and get Locked On Celtics with no interruptions. Members-only Discord access and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Just head on over to lockedonceltics.supercast.com, lockedonceltics.supercast.com to get signed up. And if we're on your Spotify Wrapped, tag the Locked On Podcast Network and you can get a month free. So check it out over at lockedonceltics.supercast.com. All right, let's get back to the discussion here with Keith Smith from Spotrac and the Celtics assets. They obviously have the players, right? Any one of these guys can be traded theoretically. But beyond that, they have all of their picks. They have the Porziņģis exception. They have a George Niang exception. They can bring in salary if they want. We talked about them getting under the tax, but if something happens and it's like a no-brainer deal, like they have the opportunity to bring in, they can just bring in a $22 million player for nothing if they want. They have to send something out, right? Like how does that work with the exception?
Yeah, so even though they're using an exception, you still run into potential hard cap issues. Right now, they're not hard capped at any of, because all they've done is moves to step down their salary. So nothing is hard capped them. But if you do a trade where you take back more money than you send out, you would still run in, even if you use an exception, you would still run into a potential hard cap issue with the first apron. So it's not quite as simple as just bring in a $22 million player. But having that tool allows you to do an unbalanced trade if you want to. I firmly believe they're not going back into the second apron. They didn't do what they did to get out of second apron world to just jump right back in. It's I've grown fond of saying the second apron is like Las Vegas. It's fun to visit for a little while, but it gets painful if you stay too long, and then you don't turn around and go right back, right? Like but once you leave, you're good for your year, and then you go home. So then you come back a year later. So maybe that's where they go. But I think for now, we're in a spot with the Celtics where, yeah, they have the ability to do some stuff. And again, like we said at the open, there's nothing I've been told that they are operating under. You must cut salary. You must get under the tax. There's been nothing said about that. And we know in years past that has been very much a thing where it's, hey, we're not a title contender. If you want to spend when we are, we will, but if we're not a title contender, let's try to get out. But we haven't seen it get to that point yet.
So, and I think part of that is the understanding that Jayson Tatum is coming back.
Yeah.
And coming back this year, coming back next year. I've said it on the podcast before. I expect him to be back this season, but I am treating that as essentially a preseason to next year. And if it becomes more than that, then great. But I'm not looking at him as being okay, all of a sudden the Celtics are a rocket ship and Tatum coming back takes them to the next stratosphere. And I don't think that's the way they should be approaching trade season here. I don't think it's a Jayson Tatum is back. Let's make this run, this move. But I think with these assets, like they own all of their picks, right? They don't owe anything, right?
Well, they owe one.
They 29.
They have the swap with the Spurs in 29.
Yeah.
So, and that's top one protected, but anything else they go. But who knows where both of those teams will be? Like, sure. I mean, at this point, let's just in pretty dark pencil, almost think say the Spurs and Thunder are going to be pretty good every year. So who knows if they are even in a position to swap? And then they owe the 29 pick from the Drew Holiday acquisition.
Okay. So,
but they said here's the easy way to put it: they have two tradable picks. They could trade the 26 or 27, and then they could trade the 30 or the 31. That's the kind of easiest way to put it.
Gotcha. So that gives them leeway because you can also do swaps in those other years, which is a system that I think needs to change, but that's a whole separate thing. But, okay. So the Celtics have exceptions. They have tradable players. I don't think, aside from Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, sort of, but I think even in the certain situation that he might be reluctantly tradable, but that would take, I think, it has to be like, oh my God, yes, of course you have to get this guy. So I think only Jaylen would be the untouchable one. And there are other guys who are to varying degrees tradable, not tradable, but they also don't have, they have Sam Hauser and Payton Pritchard. They don't have a ton of like those mid-range stackable contracts either. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, what this just means is I don't think the Celtics are going out there and making a 1-for-1 deal, right? Mm-hmm. Like, do you see, like you mentioned the one before with Terrence Mann, but I don't even see that as something like that. Like, why would they do that? Why would Brooklyn do that? I don't know. Brooklyn, I feel like they're positioned to do more than that kind of trade. So I just don't see the Celtics as, hey, we got this guy, we've got Simons, we've got picks, we've got exceptions, you've got that guy, we're talking one-on-one. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think a straight up 1-for-1 trade is extremely unlikely. The Simons for Man one is almost one where you have the conversation and then you say, hey, if it's 2:30 on deadline day and we're still kind of sitting in these spots, then maybe we pick up the phone. Because if you're the Nets, all right, that takes $15.5 million off our books for next year. If you're the Celtics, all right, we get a useful player who then that's $15.5 million we have to trade. Simons is coming off the books anyway. Let's do this. And if you're Boston, if you're put it this way, if you call the Nets today, the Nets are like, yeah, sure, give us one of those first round picks to eat the $12 million in salary difference. If you're the Celtics, you're like, no, thank you. So then maybe you come back and it's like, hey, $12 million, can you eat that for 2 seconds? Like, are you willing to do that? And then hey, we're taking 15.5 off your books for next year that you probably don't want because you're trying to clear out, still continue to clear more salary. Now you do hit a point of like, all right, how much cap space do the Nets need? Because they're probably not building this thing up very quickly. So, but a straight 1-for-1 trade, unless it's like something small, like we're moving Xavier Tillman in a deal for another guy that's a minimum, and that's just you need a big, we need a small or a guard. Let's just do a swap here. But those ones I take out of the picture. So a straight 1-for-1 trade, no, very unlikely there. I think it's more likely you see some kind of package move with this.
Today's show is brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. It happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. That's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED, designed to help you stop making excuses and start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. Just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms or in-person appointments. Your treatment ships directly to your door discreetly when you get prescribed. And the process is fast, simple, and private. It's handled by real doctors. So get that confidence, connection, and get back to the moments that matter. Visit Rougiette.com, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNBA to get 15% off your first order. That's Rougiette.com/LockedOnNBA. And don't forget to use the code LockedOnNBA so they know we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses and start making moves. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Make your second listen to Locked On NBA and Locked On NBA Game Night. They're both on the same feed. Game Night is 7 days a week, covering every game in the association. I handle Wednesdays with Jake Madison. This Wednesday is going to be one game, the NBA Cup Championship game. So catch me and Jake reacting to that. Subscribe. That is 7 days a week. And Locked On NBA, they host in the afternoons. They cover the big topics there. So check it out. It's all in the same feed wherever you found Locked On Celtics.
And I'm glad you mentioned the Tatum thing because I got excited too during the win streak. And I was like, maybe Jayson Tatum to this. But a couple of things. Jayson, I firmly believe he's going to play at some point this year. Mm-hmm. I had said, even if they were hopelessly out of it, right? They're in the lottery and we're at the end of March. If Jayson Tatum is cleared, Let him do what Paul George did, what Brandon Clark did. Get back on the floor just for a handful of games. All right, now I've done it. Now I'm not doing that again in the fall at training camp, right? I've done it. It's over and done with. And now we start fresh when the real thing starts next season.
I'm gonna insert the Michael Scott. Thank you. There.
So, right. And then my other thing is, though, I've also said, all right, now they're clearly better than that, right? They're going to be a postseason team, whether it's in the play-in tournament or in the playoffs. One way or another, they're going to be there. So then it becomes, all right, well, certainly. And I don't know how many more cleared the team, Tatum, everybody who reports on the team needs to make it. He will not be rushed back. And I don't care if you think anything earlier than 1 year to the date of the injury is rushing him back. If they all say he's cleared tomorrow, he can play tomorrow. It's not going to happen, but it will be whenever they say he's cleared, he feels like he's ready. That's when it'll be. Whenever that date is, who knows? We have no concept. I see all these people, report he's going to play in January. And nobody knows, right? No one has any idea. But I kind of look at it as, all right, you get Jayson Tatum back, add this. Whatever you get from him is just a bonus for the rest of this year. If he's back and he's Jayson Tatum, well, that's a really nice big bonus that you weren't expecting, and everybody's happy and you run off as, hey, maybe we could really be dangerous. If he gets back and he's like, yeah, he's this diminished version of Jayson Tatum who's playing his way back into shape and rhythm and all that stuff. Okay, that's still probably better than 99.9% of guys coming off the bench in the NBA. So that's kind of where I'm at with Jayson Tatum. I don't think you make any decisions on, hey, we're going to have Tatum or not have Tatum this season. That's more of that's why I like the idea of get somebody who can either help you or help you via being a contract and a trade for next season. Because next season, I'm envisioning this team has Tatum, Brown, White, Pritchard, and whatever else they add to it. Then it's now we're moving forward.
So let's look at this approach, because I think where I have settled on this, I've kind of been here all season long. The Celtics are, I think, best positioned to be the third or fourth team in on a superstar trade, where Simons and his $27 million, 27 plus million are, that's packaged with someone else to go to Milwaukee, and Giannis goes to a team and they can say, well, look, we've picked up Simons, we picked up this other guy. That team doesn't have to send out 50 something million dollars. You tell me if this is even feasible. I think first of all, I think that the second apron and the rules have made 3, 4, 5 team deals more of the norm than ever. I used to say to anybody who sent me a fake trade, once they put 4 teams in, I was like, I don't care. No, this is
not
impossible.
looking at it. Yep.
Not even bothering.
Yeah,
now,
2 teams is hard enough. Every team you add, it's like adding 100 is the way it's always explained to me.
But now, because of the rules, I think 3 and 4 team trades, that's kind of how it almost has to be.
Yeah.
So am I like anywhere close with this where Simons 27 and change $1 million can be a big help to somebody trying to match a super max $50-60 million salary, and the Celtics in exchange simply ask for the best big making whatever little money available in this deal. And the example I've been using is John Morant gets traded, Simons goes out, and the Celtics end up landing Santi Aldama in the deal, like that type of kind of scenario. Do you think that's feasible? Is there anything to that? Please validate my opinions.
I think it's reasonable to think they jump in, especially if it's, hey, we can kind of siphon off a little value here because it's coming our way. What I want to be clear on is the Celtics can't offer matching salary for another team. Like if the other team is trying to get Giannis's $54 million, they still need to send out whatever matches on $54 million, because you still got to fit Giannis into your team at the end of the day. They can't say, hey, well, the Celtics gave you 27 and we're going to give you 27 and that equals out. You still took on $27 million, which nobody can do. So So that's the part where it gets a little wonky. But to your point of a third team in, fourth team in a trade, yeah, they could jump in. And part of that is they can offer up a contract where it is, again, hey, well, let's say it's the Bucks and the Hawks. And the Bucks are like, yeah, we really don't want to take back. I'm trying to, because they don't want to do Porziņģis because that's weird because he was already with Boston. But you're like the Bucks and the Spurs. Let's just do the Bucks and the Spurs. We don't really want to take back Harrison Barnes' contract because it doesn't do anything for us, or whatever, or Kelly Olynyk's deal. The Celtics could say, hey, we can jump in there. You take Simons and we'll take that money instead. Because that money actually we don't care about having that money on our books. That's how they can kind of jump in, whether that's using Simons, using Hauser. Only reason I keep bringing those guys up, I have nothing against the two players. I think people have been far too harsh on both of them this season. So, the ones who nobody's ever good enough. But I think it is, so you've got that part, but I think there's also the ability to kind of use that trade exception, like you said. You could use that in a way where it is, hey, we're going to bring in some money via the trade exception and do it that way. There are definitely options here, especially, again, if they're not working under any kind of mandate of you must get below the tax line. Like then that really opens things up. But I'm going to become a broken record just momentarily, but get something that is helpful beyond this season, because you're not that close to be adding win now. This is not the last couple of years where it's go get that one guy that can put you over the top, or the one guy who can be a really important depth player as you chase a title or anything like that. They're not that close to doing anything that it's like, all right, yeah, now it's time to go add that player.
It's not Anthony Davis.
Yeah, those big ones, those are just too, they're just too far-fetched for me, because again, anybody, if you get much over 40 million, you're really talking about you gotta either, it's Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, or gut the team. And It's not gonna be Brown or Tatum, and gutting the team just doesn't make sense. Especially with the uncertainty around Tatum, not even beyond this year. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm as excited as the next person that Jayson Tatum looks what he looks like already in these videos they keep releasing. And I think Jayson Tatum's going to be fine. I don't think the Achilles injury is an injury that kills guys' careers anymore. I think that guys play. I mean, Kevin Durant, look how good he still is. And his happened when he was even older than Tatum. So I think we're just in a spot where it is, it's just, there is still that uncertainty. But, and I mean, I don't think you can win a team with just 2 stars, 3 stars, and a whole bunch of, minimum players now. I think you need 100 games of depth to win the NBA title now. Yeah. So you got to get through the regular season and then through the playoffs. And part of how you do that is you have enough depth that in the regular season you can rest some of your star guys and get by because your other guys are good enough that you don't completely fall off a cliff when you do it.
Well, let's end on this. Have you settled on the most realistic? What's the most realistic thing the Celtics can do? Have you looked into something that you like right now?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of mentioned the Simons for man because I don't hate it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to be jumping up and down and going crazy. If they do that, I also would not recommend anybody runs out and buys their Terrence Mann Celtics jersey if that happens, because I don't know that he'd be here beyond the rest of this season. But that's the kind of frame. The player, I'm like person 1 million to say this. Ivica Zubac is somebody I would be testing the Clippers on. Where are you going? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is your plan here? Because if the Clippers are like, yeah, we're going to start the process of really tearing this thing down. Clippers are going to have a hard reset either this summer or next summer. It's one or the other. And one of those summers, they're going to have 100 million plus in cap space. And that's where it really becomes, all right, if you're starting the process earlier, hey, we're happy to get Zubac. Now, if I was running the Clippers, I'd be like, Zubac is still good enough, young enough, and on a good enough contract. He's the guy we'll keep. Not that he's like your franchise building block, but he's just a nice player who's always going to help you. But if I'm Boston, that's the guy. If you start talking about, hey, I'm willing to trade a first-round pick and maybe a swap in another year, plus some salary, that's the kind of player I'd be targeting. Would be somebody like Ivica Zubac.
I mean, that's the name. That's like the dream. So, We'll see. We'll see if if Brad.
You don't want Nick Vucevic or and that doesn't do it. None of those guys are better enough than what they're getting out of Neemias Queta that I would at that point just roll with what you have. I'd rather have Queta get all these important minutes, so then you find out when we are in big games late in the season, is he good enough for us? That's the question I think the team would like to answer. Because now all of a sudden, imagine if you were finishing out this year and rolling into next year, and you're like, hey, actually, Neemias Queta is okay, and we're fine with him as our starting center. Now imagine the play you have because you're paying your starting center $3 million. That's a whole different world. That's like landing on a late first round draft pick. So, and then I'll just say this: the other nice thing for the Celtics, they have, even though they don't have big contracts, they're not restricted from aggregating together contracts like they were the last couple years when they were up over the second apron. So they're in a position where if something pops up and it's like an $8 million player, all right, well, then you can do Baylor Shireman and, you could put together a couple of Baylor Shireman, Xavier Tillman, Chris Boucher, because you can stack those contracts up and go get somebody in season. You can't do that in the summertime. You can't stack minimums together, even though a couple of those guys aren't minimums, but they would be able to do that. The one guy, it's weird we didn't talk about him in the untouchables because he certainly shouldn't be. I think Jordan Walsh is somebody that'd be like, all right, if I'm not, he's not just a salary throw-in anymore. He's way beyond that with how well he's played this year.
It's so funny that he's in that discussion.
I don't even understand. It is the most remarkable one. This team has won championships. This team had Gordon Hayward's leg snap in half on opening night. I said this to someone the other day. Jordan Walsh going from somebody who is this dude is running out the string to now being this incredible starter where opposing coaches are regularly I didn't realize he was that good. It's one of the more remarkable things.
It's incredible. It is incredible.
It really is.
Shout out to him, man, for getting to that level.
Awesome.
All right. Well, look, Spotrac's the place to go for all this stuff. The Spotrac trade machine is the trade machine. Do not use anybody else's because they'll just be like, oh yeah, this works. And then you go to Spotrac, you're like, nah, actually, no, it doesn't, so the Spotrac trade machine is the one to go to.
Appreciate
it's the place to go for all of your salary cap. The way you got it all laid out is perfect. Keith, appreciate you as always. Obviously everybody knows that Keith is the guy when it comes to all this stuff. And that's why I always bring him on to talk about this. Keith, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. I hope you have me back on to break down what happened when they do some stuff. That'll be
absolutely. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I do want to thank everybody. Great conversation here. Thank everybody for listening, for watching. If you are an everydayer and you want to be part of the Everydayer Club, you can go to lockdownceltics.supercast.com. Sign up. You get $5 a month, $50 for the year. If we're on your Spotify Wrapped, then tag the Lockdown Podcast Network on social media. They will give you a month off. They'll send you a code. So do that if you want to be on that. The Everydayer Club gets you ad-free audio for Lockdown Celtics. It gets you an invite to the members-only Lockdown Everydayer Discord server, exclusive access to national bonus shows, members-only Lockdown merch store, all of that stuff. So go check that out. Now, I would love it if you share the podcast. Tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Lockdown Celtics podcast. Here on the Lockdown Podcast Network, it's your team every day.